Hi, Lion Recaps here. Today I'm going to explain F4 Thailand, Boys Over Flowers. Spoiler alert, fun fact is this movie was adapted from the manga Boys Over Flowers by Yoko Kamiyo. The movie begins with Gorya, a simple girl who goes to the prestigious Kocher High School. She meets the newcomer student Hana, who asks why she's sitting alone. Gorya replies that she's one of the few athletic scholarship students in the school of the elites. She tries to discourage Hana from becoming friends with her. Hana then walks away at first, making Gorya feel a little downcast until she returns to share her meal with Gorya. Gorya then warns Hana to beware of the reckless F4, a group of the most prestigious and influential 4 students of the school, who plays a game and bullies people who goes against it via other students at the school. While she's explaining to Hana the game system called the red card, messages start pinging around the classrooms. Once a red card is placed in any student's locker, that student becomes the target for the entire school. According to Gorya, there are no rules, no evidence. Everything is made to look like an accident. Gorya also tells her that not even the teachers dare to intervene. Meanwhile, a student with a red card is being chased to an old stadium. F4 shows up to watch from their various seats as the beatings begin. F4 leader Time reads out the crime committed by the student, which was to expose the game, but F4 member MJ's team immediately erases the evidence. Time then starts to beat up the student while F4 members MJ and Kevin try to guess how long the student might last. F4 member Ren seems bored, so he exits the scene, stealing a glance at Gorya, who had run into the stadium with Hana. A while later, Gorya, disgusted by this absurd event, heads to the roof to shout out her frustrations about F4 and the stupid system. Unknown to her is that Ren is seated in a corner, observing her. After school, Gorya heads to her part-time job at a flower store, where her best friend Kaning also works part-time. She shares her frustrations with Kaning and their employer, Gawao. He immediately looks up F4, dishing out their family backgrounds, while Gorya dishes out the real truth about them. Time's family is the best in Thai real estate, and he's a top student who plays all day, an obvious fact that he buys his grades. MJ's family leads the entertainment industry, but they're actually mafia. Canning then talks about the handsome Kevin, whose family is among the oldest in Thailand. Gorya then bursts her bubble, claiming Kevin is a total player. When they get to Ren, Gawao reads that his family is in medicine. Gorya has no real information about him, as he poses to be mysterious and calm. However, the 3 of them conclude that a bad guy isn't worth it, no matter how handsome. Later that evening, Gorya's family celebrates her 222nd day at Kocher High. Her parents hope she makes connections there, and maybe bag a Prince Charming while she's at it. Gorya, however, isn't interested and only hopes to graduate quietly. She recalls her reason for wanting to go to Kocher High, which was from a speech made by a fellow student named Mira, who happens to be Gorya's role model. The next day at school, Gorya tells Hana how she had been trying hard to stay low profile in the school, as she doesn't dare to lose her scholarship. The duo then agree to stay quiet till graduation, hopefully not having issues with F4. Unfortunately, Hana gets up from the table to bump into Time, dropping her lunch on his expensive shoe. Hana tries to apologize, but the students cheer her to lick his shoe clean. On the other hand, Gorya gets offended and tries to defend her friend. She pleads with Time to forgive Hana, claiming he had gone too far. Time agrees, but when Gorya returns to her locker, she finds a red card and the game begins. She quickly excuses herself from the class to the infirmary, but the group chat reveals her location. When the guys come to check the infirmary, she climbs out through the window. She ends up getting drenched by a bucket of water. However, Hana keeps avoiding her, leaving Gorya to suffer alone. Gorya heads to the roof to let out her frustrations, but Ren scolds her for being noisy this time. When their classmates barge in looking for Gorya, he hides her and lies to them that she's not there. When Ren leaves, she finds a sketch of her shouting from the roof. She hides on the rooftop till after school, but is soon caught by a group of boys whom Time had sent. They drag her into the storage room and start to rip her clothes. Fortunately, she is saved by Ren, who tells them off and sets off the fire alarm system to help her escape. Time beats up the students for not getting rid of Goria. MJ then points out that the mistake is from Time, who had given a red card to a girl for the first time. Just then, a staff member pulls Time away to meet with his mom Rosalind, who's having an interview where she concludes that employees who cause trouble deserve a red card. At dinner, she reminds Time that he can't control anything if he can't rule his school. Meanwhile, since Goria doesn't want to go to school again, her dad gives her a new pair of shoes, saying her mom had spent her savings on them. He consoles her by saying she faces trouble because her shoes are worn out. According to him, bad shoes take one to bad places. Her brother then draws on grass flowers to mark her shoes while they celebrate her agreement to push on. Unfortunately, she faces a cruel reality at school when her shoes are snatched and kicked to lure her to the old stadium where she meets Time. Time destroys her shoe with a blade and tosses it into the trash, but she picks it out and puts it back on regardless. Time still doesn't keep quiet about her until she throws a kick right in the midsection, knocking him to the ground. As everyone looks in astonishment, she vows never to give up, no matter what. The following day, news about Goria standing up to Time floods the net. On her way to school, Time kidnaps Goria to his place, lets his servants dress her up, and even offers her a car. He tells Goria that he will give all of these things to her as long as she gives him a public apology. When Goria refuses, he starts to chase her around the house while she tries to escape. They soon run into Rosalind, who's irritated by the sight and asks for Goria to be escorted out of the house. Goria arrives at school to see more ugly acts of bullying from the students, who even spread fake news about her being a slut and wanting F4. As usual, she takes out her frustration at the rooftop again. Ren then shows up, amused by her ways of taking out her anger. They start talking, and she thanks him for helping her out. Ren then asks how long it would take to get to Thailand from France by air, but she tells him she isn't with her phone to work out the time difference. Later, Kaning talks about his first kiss at the flower shop, and they discuss how special a first kiss is meant to be. While talking, Hannah stops by. She apologizes to Goria, and the two then reconcile over a drink of soy milk. Goria sees Ren and rushes over to meet him. They talk about Mira, her role model, and she finally gives him the answer to his question. Ren then leans in to wipe the soy off her face and teases her about kissing her. Flushed, she runs off to join Hannah while Time watches from his car. The next day, Hannah is given the red card. Goria soon realizes and rushes to rescue Hannah. Time then orders Goria to shave her head if she wishes to save her friend. Luckily, Ren appears at the right time to save Goria. After the event, the mean girls apologize to Goria and invite her to Mira's welcome party. Goria declines, saying she doesn't have anything to wear, but the girls tell her that she can dress casually since it's a casual party. That evening, Goria comes to the party with Kaning to meet a very fancy getup. Realizing she's been tricked, she tries to leave but turns around and heads for the pool when F4 walks in. While sulking by the poolside, she's mistaken for a waitress by one party guest. The mean girls quickly rush toward her, laughing, and the bullying continues. Surprisingly, Mira sees them and rushes to Goria's aid. She humiliates the mean girls and takes Goria along with her for a makeover. After the fairy godmother's transformation, Goria returns to the party. Ren compliments her and approaches her, but irritates Time, who immediately attacks him. Goria then tries to separate them, but ends up in an awkward headbutt with Time after trying to push him down. Time starts to act strangely after his kiss with Goria. Ren and Time are adamant about sticking to their sides, and none of them wants to apologize first, as Ren claims Time needs to grow up and learn to apologize. On the other hand, Mira decides to live in France to pursue her dreams and fights with Ren regarding her decision. Meanwhile, Goria, who had been looking to talk to Ren about the incident, witnesses their argument and realizes Ren is in love with Mira. The next day, she gets on a bus to school but is shocked to see Time, who claims to have bought the bus. She tries to escape, but Time is persistent. Finally getting the bus to stop, Goria rushes out while Time chases after her. He's then kicked in the midsection by his beloved older sister Tia. Tia apologizes to Goria and has her driver drop Goria off at school. Meanwhile, Time is surprised his sister has returned without informing him, so she tells him that she's back for their family's business. Goria can't stand seeing Ren being heartbroken, so she begs Mira to stay when she follows Ren to Mira's house. Ren witnesses this scene and is enraged. He yells at Gorya for putting her nose where it doesn't belong. Gorya gets annoyed and yells at Ren to try before giving up on his love. On the day of Mira's departure, Ren shows up late but is there to break it to Gorya and F4 that he'll be going to Paris as per Gorya's advice. Time gets upset that Ren is leaving without informing them about the sudden change. They end up reconciling and they bid Ren goodbye. The next day, while in the cafeteria, Gorya receives a public invite from Time to go out for a date, but she takes it as a joke and hangs out with Kaning during the weekend. During their hangout, it starts to rain, and the girls take cover close to the location Time had given Gorya. Gorya gets stricken by her conscience and rushes with an umbrella to the location, only to meet a drenched Time waiting for her. Time gets angry at Gorya for being late, but they soon sort things out and start their date. Late in the evening, Gorya offers to buy Time a dinner, only to find out that the restaurant is too expensive for her to afford. She drags him along to the fire escape to talk things out, but they end up being stuck at the fire escape for a night. Gorya then takes care of Time, who has caught a fever after standing in the rain for so long. He drops her off at her house the next morning and says goodbye. Gorya then enters the house to meet heartbreaking news about her father's debts, which need to be paid off soon. Her mum tells her that her brother, Glakao, had caught one of the loan sharks leaving a flyer at their house. She offers to help pay off the debt by working as a call girl for the night, but she feels uncomfortable and ends up attacking the client who tried to make a move on her. The next day at school, Hana confronts Gorya about a photo of her and Time when he dropped her off. At first, Gorya thinks it's a clip from the bar last night, but gets relieved on seeing the clip. While they're at the confrontation stage, Time intervenes and announces that he's dating Gorya. He also cancels the red card, to everyone's disappointment. That night, Time shows up at Gorya's house. Her father steps out to ask him who he is, and when he finds out he's Time from the famous Akira family, they welcome him and even share dinner with him. Meanwhile, Kaning gets a call from Kavin to meet up. She goes to see him and MJ, and they warn her about Time's sister, asking her to help keep Gorya in the friendship zone with Time. Kaning tells them off, saying Gorya has the right to date whom she wants. Pictures about Gorya at the nightclub soon spread around the school. Time argues with her after seeing the photos and gets brokenhearted. Kavin and MJ instantly think there's someone behind this and decide to investigate for Gorya's sake. That evening at the bar, Time gets drunk and is taken to the hotel by Hana, who turns out to be behind all the turn of events. Hana uses Time's phone to get the whole school against Gorya by declaring the red card on her. While the bullying continues, Time tries to save himself from Hana, who claims to have been in love with him since elementary school and has gone through many changes for his sake. Time explains to her that he feels for Gorya and tells her she can only truly love by loving herself first. He rushes out of the hotel room to save Gorya from the hands of the students and takes her to his house, where he nurses her wounds and lets her sleep on his lap till morning. Time then has MJ deal with the students who bullied Gorya and tries to cover up the events. On the other hand, Hana turns in her resignation from the school and leaves Gorya a carton of soy milk with an apology written on it. To spice things up, Ren returns from Paris but feels like an entirely different person to Gorya. Kaning suggests that Gorya talk to Ren by returning the handkerchief. On the other hand, Time is unable to contact Gorya as her phone is broken, so he buys her a new phone and asks her out for a date. Gorya then decides to make it a double date with Kaning and her boyfriend. Later that night, Gorya finally talks to Ren about his Paris experience, but Ren only answers vaguely and ends up stirring up her feelings for him again. While rushing to board the bus, she drops her phone, which Ren picks up. Time goes to Ren for outfit ideas for the double date and finds Gorya's phone on the couch. Ren then tells him he intends to give it to her. During their date, Time confronts Gorya about the phone and if she was with someone when she had dropped it. She lies to him, and Time decides not to return the phone. Their date ends in a disaster when Time beats Kaning's boyfriend for spewing nonsense about Gorya, but Gorya misunderstands him and tells him she hates him. The next day at school, Gorya finds out that Ren is heartbroken since Mira had found love with another man. She rushes to console him, and they embrace, unknown to them that Time is watching. Time gets furious seeing Gorya in Ren's embrace and declares that he's kicking Ren out of F4 after creating a scene. At home, Rosalind warns him to stop seeing Gorya to stay out of trouble. Meanwhile, Ren takes Gorya out for a date, but Gorya can't help but talk about Time all the time. Cavan reaches out to Kaning, asking for help to find Ren and Gorya. While searching for them, Kaning sees her boyfriend cheating with another girl. Ren and Gorya also walk in on the scene. Gorya realizes she had hurt Time by not understanding where he was coming from the other day. Ren also realizes that Gorya and Time are head over heels for each other, so he asks to see Time at the old stadium that evening. Ren starts a fight to get Time to confess his feelings for Gorya. He successfully gets Time's confession and, at the same time, resolves their dispute. Gorya rushes to the stadium after getting a text from Tia. She finds out that F4 has settled their dispute and that she feels the same way for Time. Time then promises to change for her and permanently closes the stadium. While exiting the school premises, Ren confesses to Cavan and MJ that he had started the fight just to beat Time up for tearing his teddy in kindergarten, and they laugh it off. Gorya comes home the next day to meet Rosalind in their house. The lady initiates a negotiation by offering Gorya money to stay away from Time. But Gorya and her mother refuse the offer and asks the woman to leave their house. Time later finds out that the company Gorya's father works at had shut down because of his mother. He later decides to protect Gorya by himself by purchasing and moving into the house next to Gorya's. Things take a huge toll on the two during Time's birthday party. Gorya meets Rosalind, who tells her she doesn't know when to quit. But Gorya tells her that her relationship is her choice and that she won't back down. While the party continues, Gorya decides to hand over Time's present when Rosalind announces his engagement to Lita, the daughter of another prestigious family. With Cavan and MJ's help, Time attempts to escape the engagement announcement party with Gorya, but he mistakes Lita for Gorya and leaves the venue with Lita instead. The next day at school, Gorya is shocked to see Lita sneak into her school. She helps Lita by hiding her in the lab, where Lita apologizes for ruining her dress and offers her a new one. Gorya comes home to find Time eating with Glacau and finally gives Time the birthday present she made. At the same time, Pakorn's latest news is all over the town, which worries Time and all the investors of Thailand at large. Cavan and MJ help distract Lita from Time, but get fooled around by her. News soon spreads about Pakorn's death. Gorya witnesses what the high-class society is like with her own eyes during the burial ceremony. She now realizes the enormous gap between her world and Time's world. After the burial, Lita meets with Gorya, and they share Lita's treat. Lita raises the topic of love, and Gorya advises her not to marry someone she doesn't love. Surprisingly, Lita confesses to have fallen for Time, having studied his character for a while now. Later that night, Gorya meets up with Talay, a former acquaintance of hers whom she met at the dry cleaners the day before Time's birthday. They talk about how much Talay doesn't want to associate with the elites, and he explains to her that things are different between them and the elites. She returns the next morning to meet Time sleeping outside the house waiting for her. Time then prepares them a meal. While eating, Gorya suggests that Time and Lita look good together. Time then drags her out to talk to her, where she lashes out at Time to just give up and be free with Lita. Time gets upset and yells at her about throwing everything he's ever done away because she feels their worlds are different. However, she turns her back on Time and lets him get taken away by Rosalind's men, who have been searching for him. That night, under the cold rain, Lita returns to meet an unexpected guest. Time makes his relationship with Lita official, and due to their social status, the two become the hot topic of the town. Students in school begin to bully Gorya again and mock her about the issue, but Talay becomes one of her few trusted friends in school. One day, while Time is out with Lita, he sees Gorya and Talay together. He gets upset and confronts Talay, but Gorya tells him off and asks him to stay away from her. On the day of the prom, Gorya receives the red card once again. Ren suspects there's something fishy behind Talay, so while MJ and Cavan research the boy, Ren reaches out to help Gorya. After saving Gorya from the hands of the bullies, he finds out that Talay is behind the foul play and calls MJ to warn him about it, but gets attacked by Talay and the bullies. They abduct Gorya, and Talay sends a picture of her tied up to Time, asking to meet with him alone. Time immediately rushes off, leaving Lita alone at the prom. On reaching there, Time is beaten by Talay and his fellows without defending himself, as he has learned that violence does not always solve the problem. Talay reveals that he's a friend of Fufa, who F4 previously bullied at the beginning of the series. Talay gets carried away with his revenge and almost kills Time, but Gorya frees herself and takes the hit. Days later, Gorya wakes up in the hospital to see Kaning. She asks about Time, but Kaning doesn't give an answer, so she rushes off to ask for Time's room and enters to meet F4 in a mourning state with Time's face covered. Devastated, Gorya starts to cry and confesses her love for him, only to realize that she had been pranked. Later on, Time apologizes to everyone he hurt before. However, Talay doesn't forgive him and plans to post the video clip of Time's confession to his mistakes online. Time snatches Talay's phone and posts the video anyway, willing to take whatever punishment he will get from his actions. The following day, Time's men abduct Gorya again to see Time one last time before he receives judgment. Luckily, they find out from a voice note Talay sends that Time had posted the video, but it was set to "Only Me." Talay also apologizes and finally forgives Time for everything. That evening, Time proposes to Gorya officially to be his girlfriend, but she reminds him about his official declaration with Lita. She then agrees to wait for him and prepares to leave, but Time wants her to stay. They then fool around in Time's room when Lita comes in. Lita begins to suspect their relationship, but the steward, Auntie Yu, claims Gorya is their new maid to save them the trouble. Gorya is then forced to work as a maid to Time's utmost pleasure. One day, while talking to herself in the kitchen, Gorya encounters Yu, who now seems to be rooting for her relationship with Time and urges her not to give up. On the other hand, Lita has refused to see the entire F4 members since she's upset. Meanwhile, Kevin, who Time sends, is now a substitute at the flower shop. Kevin and Kaning then become closer than before. But for some reason, Kevin withdraws himself from Kaning. One evening, while Gorya and Time discuss how to call off the engagement with Lita, Lita overhears their conversation and has finally figured out their relationship. Unfortunately for Time, Lita has gone ahead and sent an email to his mother requesting to stay at the mansion to get to know Time better. And now she has arrived with her luggage after getting approval from Time's mother. She orders Gorya to put away her bags since she's now a maid, which infuriates Time, but Gorya insists on doing it. When Time opposes her, she threatens to use her power to destroy Gorya's life. Lita confronts Time one last time that night and realizes that Time loves Gorya. She sets up a meeting with her parents and Time and calls off the engagement. She apologizes to Gorya via video message, but Gorya finds her minutes before her flight takes off. After bidding her goodbye, MJ, Ren, and Kevin take her to Time, and she finally says yes to him. After days of working at the mansion, Gorya returns to the flower shop to find that Canning is down. She figures out that it's Kevin, so she asks Time about Kevin's past. Time tells Gorya that Kevin has a childhood friend called Mona, whom he had a crush on, and after years of trying to maintain his friendship with her, he confessed to Mona but was too scared to get a reply from her. Canning then goes out of her way to find the rooftop where Mona had asked to meet Kevin years ago, giving Kevin's Mona's reply to clear the air, but Kevin is already deep into Canning. He tells her he didn't go there because of Mona and chooses to remain silent about the real reason. Everyone is finally happy, and Gorya doesn't have to work as a maid anymore. She surprises Time with a kiss, and they finally share their first real kiss. Meanwhile, the others exit the premise of Time's home when Ren notices Rosalind is up to something. Gorya returns home to meet Ren, who tries to divert her attention from going home. She pushes him away to see that her home is being destroyed by men sent from Rosalind. That same morning, Canning receives a call from her father, who claims to have just been fired by the company, and some people caused trouble in the flower shop. Time's credit cards are also frozen, throwing them off balance. Gorya can no longer stand it, so she goes to negotiate with Rosalind, who lies to her about having cancer. She manages to convince Gorya to let Time be, and for the sake of Time's growth, Gorya lies to Time and breaks up with him. Days later, she disappears without a trace. Ren doesn't give up on finding Gorya, and all that patience comes in handy when he spots her on the news. He finds out that she's gone to the province where her family lives as farmers. Ren then meets Time and informs him about Gorya's location, but being brainwashed enough by his mother, Time chooses not to look for her. However, Ren travels to the province and ends up helping Gorya's family with the debt their aunt had left after swindling people. That night, Ren proposes to Goria, but when she declines, he explains everything to her, including that Time's mother tricked her. Meanwhile, Cavan and MJ kidnap Time, hoping to teach him, while Goria watches from Ren's phone. Cavan and MJ manage to get Time back on track, to go against Rosalind by doing the right thing for their company's growth, promising him support. On the other end, Goria decides to go back for Time with Ren. The next day, Time arrives at the meeting late and proposes a new policy for the company after the damage done by Rosalind. To her surprise, the investors agree to Time's proposal. Time then receives a text from Cavan saying Goria is around. Tia catches up with the atmosphere and tells him she'll take it from there. While Time rushes out to find Goria, he bumps into a masked man, whom he recognizes as one of their suppliers his mum had cut off due to selfish decisions. He senses his mum is in danger and goes back to the scene where his mum tries to escape the paparazzi. The man attempts to stab her, but Time takes the hit, falling to the ground with an impact on the head. He's immediately rushed to the hospital, where the doctors claim he has suffered brain damage and has lost too much blood. His mum's secretary suggests they call off the upcoming meeting till the next time, but she insists on having the meeting the next day, despite Tia's advice. Days later, Time finally regains consciousness but has lost 4 years of memory, including Goria. Rosalind then takes the chance to educate Time on becoming the successful heir she always wanted. With the help of F4, Goria sneaks into Time's room one day, wishing to recover his memory. But it doesn't work, and she's soon caught by Rosalind, who kicks her out of the house. They get into an argument, and Rosalind slaps Goria for claiming she didn't love her son. However, Goria remains persistent and stands in front of Time's house for hours after being kicked out. It soon starts to rain, and Tia can't bear to watch this cruelty unfold. She tries to talk to her mother again to bring back Time's happiness, but Rosalind is adamant. A while later, Rosalind questions Goria about why she's so determined. Goria then tells her about the life Time dreams of having. She tells Rosalind that Time only wishes to be happy. Time then approaches them and denies Goria's claims, yelling at her to get lost. Seeing as she cannot get Time back, she finally gives up and leaves. Fortunately, Time notices the necklace he had gotten her on the floor, and his memories begin to rush in. Rosalind has a change of heart and orders them to open the gates. Time immediately chases after Goria. A few minutes after getting his memories back, he updates his social media status with a picture of himself and Goria. Everyone celebrates the reunion and blesses them. After that day, Time leaves for the US while Goria returns to school to complete her education. Everything goes back to normal for her. Prom arrives, but as usual, Goria bumps into trouble with her family and goes late. When she arrives, she's disappointed to see it has ended. Suddenly, she finds a red card with a clue behind it. She follows all the clues and arrives at the old stadium where Time had arranged a prom party for her. She dances with MJ, Cavan, Ren, and finally Time. After the dance, MJ declares it's time for the 10 seconds in heaven. The duo then shares a kiss, while MJ counts down to 0. The end. F4 Thailand, Boys Over Flowers, is a Thai television series that tells the story of Goria, who gets accepted into a prestigious school where she finds true friendship and love with a group of rich brats.